Jake Murphy stood in the long line at the Kepler Station cafeteria, watching dozens of alien species grab their meals. He still could not believe he was here. 3 months ago, he was just another college student at Ohio State. Now he was on a space station bigger than most cities, studying with beings from across the galaxy. The food smelled weird. Everything here smelled weird. Jake grabbed a tray and pointed to something that looked like green soup. The robot server scooped it into a bowl. At least the robots were normal. Well, more normal than his classmates. Jake found an empty table and sat down. He pulled out his phone to check messages from home. The screen showed a weather alert from Columbus. Severe thunderstorm warning. Winds up to 60 miles per hour. Hail possible. Is that a communication device? Jake looked up. A tall, crystal-like being stood next to his table. Her body caught the light and threw rainbows across the wall. She had what looked like a face, but it was hard to tell with all the reflections. "Yeah, it's my phone," Jake said. "You can sit, if you want." "Thank you, I am Zixandra from the Harmony Worlds. You are the human, correct?" "One of them. I'm Jake." He put his phone away. "Sorry, just checking the weather back home." Zixandra's crystal body made a soft ringing sound. Jake thought it might be laughter. "Weather? Your world has changing atmospheric conditions?" "Sure. It's spring, so lots of storms." Jake took a sip of the green soup. It tasted like mint and sadness. "This storm looks pretty bad. 60-mile-per-hour winds." The crystal being went completely still. The rainbows stopped moving. 60 of your miles per hour? Yeah, that's not too crazy though. Last year we had a tornado hit about 50 miles. From my house, that was over 100 miles per hour. Zixandra made a sound like breaking glass. 2 more aliens at nearby tables turned to look. One was a large insect-like creature with 6 arms. The other looked like a walking plant with flowers for a head. "Did you say tornado?" The insect being moved closer. His voice buzzed like a whole hive of bees. "I am Veltar of the Collective. Are you speaking of rotating atmospheric disturbances?" "Yeah, tornadoes. Spinning windstorms." Jake used his hands to show a spinning motion. "They can get pretty big. The one last year was an F3, that's like medium size." Veltar's 6 arms began shaking. "Medium size? What would be considered large?" "Well, an F5 can have winds over 200 miles per hour. They can destroy whole towns." Jake noticed both aliens had gone very quiet. "But those are rare. Most tornadoes are pretty small." The plant being drifted over. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind through leaves. "Small tornadoes? How does your species survive these atmospheric attacks?" "Attacks?" Jake laughed. "They're just weather. You go inside, wait for it to pass. Sometimes people chase them for fun." "For fun?" Zixandra's crystal body started ringing like an alarm. "Your people pursue these death winds for entertainment?" "Some do. Storm chasers. They drive around in special trucks and follow tornadoes to study them." Jake pulled out his phone again. "Look, my cousin posted this video last week. He showed them a video of a tornado in a field." The 3 aliens stared at the screen like Jake was showing them footage of the end of the world. "That spinning column of destruction," Veltar buzzed. "How close is the recording device? Maybe half a mile? My cousin's pretty careful. He never gets too close." "Too close?" The plant being's flowers closed tight. "Any proximity to such devastation would mean instant death for my people." Jake realized something was wrong. These aliens seemed genuinely terrified of normal weather. "What's the weather like on your worlds?" "The Harmony Worlds maintain perfect atmospheric stability," Zixandra said. "Temperature varies by no more than 2 degrees across seasons. Wind speeds never exceed 3 of your miles per hour. Precipitation is scheduled and controlled." "My world has no weather at all," said Veltar. "The Collective maintains all atmospheric conditions within optimal parameters. A single degree of temperature change would require planetary evacuation." Jake stared at them. "But how do you deal with storms, rain, snow? Deal with them?" The plant being's flowers opened slightly. "Such chaos would end all life. No species could survive random atmospheric violence." "But it's not violence," It's just nature. Earth has thunderstorms almost every day somewhere. People go outside in the rain all the time. Kids play in puddles. The three aliens exchanged what Jake assumed were looks of horror. More students from nearby tables started gathering around. Jake saw beings that looked like walking trees, floating jellyfish, and things he could not even describe. Your offspring, Veltar buzzed slowly, deliberately expose themselves to falling water? Sure, rain's fun. I used to love playing in the mud when it rained. Jake smiled at the memory. My mom would get so mad when I came inside covered in dirt. A new voice joined the conversation. What's all this about Earth weather? Jake turned to see Dr. Helen Carter, his xenobiology professor. She was one of only 5 humans on the station. Her gray hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she carried a cup of coffee. Professor Carter, Jake said, these guys seem really scared of normal weather. Dr. Carter looked around at the crowd of alien students. Their expressions ranged from fascination to pure terror. Oh dear. Have you been telling them about storms? Just about the tornado warning back home. Dr. Carter closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Jake, most worlds in the galaxy are what we call garden worlds. Perfect temperature, no weather changes, completely stable. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. Death world? Jake had never heard that term. A planet so hostile that most galactic species would die within hours of exposure to its surface conditions. Dr. Carter looked at the gathered aliens. What humans consider mild weather would be considered a planetary disaster by most civilizations. Zixandra's crystal body was ringing constantly now. Your world attacks its inhabitants with violent atmospheric conditions, and your species has not only survived, but developed space travel? Well, when you put it that way, Jake said. I think, Dr. Carter said, looking at all the fascinated alien faces, that we need to have a proper discussion about Earth. Would you all be interested in attending some special lectures about human homeworld conditions? The response was immediate and unanimous. Every alien student wanted to know more about the impossible death world that had somehow produced a spacefaring species. Dr. Carter smiled. Very well. Tomorrow evening, Lecture Hall 7. We'll start with basic Earth atmospheric conditions. She paused. And Jake, maybe don't mention earthquakes, volcanoes, or hurricanes until then. Jake nodded, though he was not sure why those things would be scary either. As the crowd of alien students dispersed, all buzzing with excitement and terror, Jake realized he was about to learn just how unusual his home really was. Lecture Hall 7 was packed. Jake had never seen so many different alien species in one place. Every seat was taken, and some students were floating or hanging from the ceiling. Word had spread fast about the human death world presentation. Dr. Carter stood at the front with a large screen behind her. She looked calm, but Jake could see her hands shaking slightly as she organized her notes. Good evening, everyone, Dr. Carter began. Before we start, I want to make something clear. What I'm about to show you is normal daily life on Earth. Humans don't consider any of this dangerous or unusual. Zixandra sat in the front row, her crystal body dim with worry. Next to her, Veltar's 6 arms were folded tight against his insect body. The plant being from yesterday had brought 3 more of his species. They all looked like wilted flowers. Let's start with something simple, Dr. Carter said. Earth weather. The screen showed a video of rain falling on a city street. Humans walked by with umbrellas, some without any protection at all. A few people were actually smiling. The lecture hall erupted in shocked whispers and clicks and buzzes. This is precipitation, Dr. Carter explained. Water falls from the sky at speeds, up to 20 miles per hour. The drops hit with enough force to sting exposed skin. A student that looked like a walking coral reef raised several arms. Professor, are those humans not wearing protective suits? No suits. Some use umbrellas, but many people just accept getting wet. Dr. Carter clicked to the next slide. Children often play in rain for fun. The new video showed kids jumping in puddles, laughing as water splashed everywhere. Several alien students made sounds of distress. The human young are deliberately exposing themselves to high-velocity water impacts. Veltar buzzed in horror. Where are the medical teams? There are no medical teams, Dr. Carter said gently. This is considered play. Getting wet from rain is not harmful to humans. Jake watched the aliens react. Some were taking frantic notes. Others looked like they might pass out. A few had left the room entirely. Now let's discuss temperature variation. Dr. Carter continued. The screen showed a graph of Earth's seasonal changes. In many places on Earth, temperature can vary by 60 degrees between summer and winter. Humans adapt by changing their clothing. 60 degrees? Zixandra's voice was barely a whisper. How does any life survive such extreme fluctuations? Not only do we survive, Dr. Carter said, but humans actually travel to places with even more extreme temperatures for vacation. She showed pictures of people skiing in snow, lying on hot beaches and hiking in deserts. These are recreational activities. Humans do this for enjoyment. A student that looked like a living cloud drifted forward. Professor Carter, what temperature ranges can humans tolerate? Humans have survived in temperatures from -40 degrees to over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. With proper clothing, we can work in even more extreme conditions. The cloud student began to rain. Jake thought it might be crying. Let's move on to wind, Dr. Carter said. The screen showed people walking on a windy day, their hair and clothes blowing around. This is a normal windy day on Earth. Wind speeds around 20 miles per hour. But yesterday, the human Jake mentioned winds of 60 miles per hour, said the plant being. Was he describing a planetary disaster? Jake stood up. No, that was just a regular thunderstorm. We get those all the time in spring. Dr. Carter nodded. Jake is correct. Let me show you what we consider severe weather. The screen filled with footage from a hurricane. Trees bent almost to the ground. Rain flew sideways. The wind howled like a living thing. This is Hurricane Patricia from 2015, Dr. Carter said. Wind speeds reached 200 miles per hour. Humans evacuated from the worst areas, but many stayed to help with emergency services. The lecture hall went completely silent. Jake could hear the station's air recycling system humming. Stayed? Veltar's voice was barely a buzz. Humans remained on the planet during 200-mile-per-hour winds? Emergency workers, yes. Police, firefighters, medical teams. They helped people who couldn't evacuate. Ryan Brooks, another human, student, raised his hand. Should I tell them about the people who surf during hurricanes? Maybe not today, Ryan, Dr. Carter said quickly. She clicked to a new slide showing the sun. Now, Earth receives direct radiation from our star. Humans expose themselves to this radiation regularly. The screen showed people at a beach, lying in the sun wearing almost no clothes. This is called sunbathing, Dr. Carter explained. Humans deliberately expose their skin to solar radiation for the purpose of changing their skin color. A student that looked like a metal tree began making alarm sounds. They are voluntarily irradiating themselves for cosmetic purposes. The radiation also helps human bodies produce vitamin D, which we need to stay healthy. You require radiation to survive? Zixandra asked. In small amounts, yes. Too much can be harmful, but humans have adapted to handle quite a bit of solar exposure. Dr. Carter showed more pictures. People hiking mountains, swimming in oceans, camping in forests. These are common recreational activities on Earth. Humans regularly expose themselves to the elements for fun. Fun. Veltar repeated the word, like he was trying to understand it. Humans seek out dangerous environmental conditions for entertainment. What we consider dangerous and what you consider dangerous are very different things, Jake said. To us, this is just normal life. Let me show you one more thing, Dr. Carter said. The screen showed time-lapse footage of Earth's day and night cycle. Earth rotates every 24 hours. This means humans experience regular periods of total darkness. The gasps from the audience were audible. Darkness on most worlds means death, said the choral student. How do humans survive 12 hours without light? We sleep during dark periods, Dr. Carter explained. Human bodies are adapted to function on this cycle. We actually need the darkness to rest properly. Your species willingly enters unconsciousness while your world is in total darkness? The plant being's flowers were completely closed now. Without protection or monitoring, most humans sleep alone in their homes, yes. We consider it safe and necessary. Ryan Brooks stood up. Should I mention that some people go camping, like sleeping outside in the dark on purpose? The lecture hall erupted in panic. Several students began making emergency calls. Others were updating their homeworld governments about the impossible human species. Dr. Carter raised her hands for quiet. Please, everyone calm down. Remember, this is normal for humans. We've been living this way for thousands of years. That's impossible, Zixandra said. No species could evolve on a world with such hostile conditions. How did humans not only survive but develop advanced technology? Dr. Carter smiled. That's exactly what we'll discuss in tomorrow's lecture. We'll talk about human biology and how our bodies adapted to handle these conditions. As the alien students filed out, chattering in dozens of languages about the impossible Deathworld, Jake heard one of them say, "If this is just their weather, what are the humans themselves like?" Jake exchanged a look with Ryan and Dr. Carter. Tomorrow's lecture was going to be very interesting. The lecture hall was even more crowded than before. Jake counted at least 50 different species, some he had never seen before. Word about the human Deathworld lectures had spread across the entire station. Dr. Carter was not alone today. She had brought Dr. Lisa Grant from the medical department and Alex Stone, a human medical student. Jake also noticed Kevin Walsh, a human who played on the station's mixed-species sports teams. Yesterday we discussed Earth's hostile environment. Dr. Carter began. Today we'll explain how human bodies adapted to survive these conditions. She gestured to Alex Stone. Alex will demonstrate some basic human physical capabilities. Alex stepped forward. He was tall and thin, wearing simple exercise clothes. To Jake, he looked completely normal. But Jake could see the alien students, studying Alex like he was some kind of monster. First, let's talk about human bone structure, Dr. Lisa Grant said. Alex, could you show them your flexibility? Alex nodded and sat on the floor. Then he did something that made half the audience gasp. He bent forward and touched his forehead to his knees. Impossible, buzzed Veltar. His spine should have snapped. Human spines are made of 26 separate bones called vertebrae, Dr. Grant explained. This allows us to bend and twist in ways that would be impossible with a solid spine. Alex stood up and demonstrated by bending backward until his hands touched the floor behind him. Several alien students made sounds of distress, but that's not all. Dr. Grant continued. Alex, show them your joints. Alex began moving his arms in wide circles, then bent his elbows and wrists at angles that made the aliens very uncomfortable. One student that looked like a walking stick left the room. Every major human joint can move in multiple directions, Dr. Grant said. This allows humans to climb, run, jump, and escape from dangerous situations. Escape? Zixandra asked. You mean humans are designed to flee from threats? Among other things, Dr. Carter said. She nodded to Kevin Walsh. Kevin here plays in our interspecies sports league. Kevin, could you show them some basic human movement? Kevin smiled and began to jog in place. Then he dropped to the floor and did 10 push-ups. The alien students watched like he was performing magic tricks. How is he supporting his entire body weight with just his arms? Asked the coral student. Human muscle density is much higher than most species, Dr. Grant explained. We also have excellent cardiovascular systems. Kevin, show them your endurance. Kevin began doing jumping jacks. After 5 minutes, he was breathing hard but still going strong. On Earth, some humans run marathons. That's over 26 miles without stopping. The plant being's flowers wilted completely. 26 miles? Our people can barely walk. 2 miles before exhaustion. But physical capability is only part of the story, Dr. Grant said. Let me tell you about the human immune system. She pulled up a diagram on the screen. The human immune system is essentially a biological warfare unit inside every human body. Warfare unit? Veltar's buzzing became high-pitched with worry. Earth is full of bacteria, viruses, and parasites that try to invade human bodies. Our immune systems fight them constantly. Alex stepped forward again. I had the flu 3 months ago. It's a virus that attacks the respiratory system. You were infected with a hostile organism? The cloud student began raining harder. Yeah, for about a week. Fever, cough, body aches. Then my immune system killed it and I got better. You survived a viral infection without medical intervention? Zixandra's crystal body was ringing like an alarm. Humans survive dozens of infections every year, Dr. Grant said. Our bodies are constantly fighting off diseases that would kill most galactic species instantly. Dr. Carter stepped forward. Now let's discuss human pain tolerance. She nodded to Alex, who pulled out a small pin. Don't worry, this is just a demonstration. Alex pricked his finger with the pin. A small drop of blood appeared. The alien students reacted like he had cut off his entire hand. Human blood contains clotting. Agents? Dr. Grant explained as Alex's finger stopped bleeding. Small wounds seal themselves automatically. But more importantly, Dr. Carter said, Alex just deliberately injured himself and remained conscious and functional. On most worlds, any physical damage would cause immediate unconsciousness, said the metal tree student. How do humans remain active while injured? Pain tolerance, Dr. Grant said. Human nervous systems can continue functioning even with significant damage. Kevin stepped forward. I broke my arm playing sports last year. I finished the game before going to the hospital. The lecture hall went silent except for the sound of the cloud students' rain. You continued athletic competition with a fractured bone? Veltar asked. It hurt, but adrenaline helped me ignore it. Adrenaline? Several students asked at once. Dr. Grant smiled. This is where it gets interesting. When humans face danger or stress, our bodies release a chemical called adrenaline. It makes us stronger, faster, and less sensitive to pain. Your bodies have a built-in combat enhancement system? The choral student's arms were waving frantically. In a way, yes. Alex, could you demonstrate the difference? Alex picked up a heavy box from the corner of the room with some effort. Then Dr. Grant played a loud, sudden alarm sound. Alex jumped, his eyes went wide, and suddenly he lifted the same box like it weighed nothing. That's adrenaline, Dr. Grant explained as Alex's breathing returned to normal. In emergency situations, humans become temporarily superhuman. This is beyond understanding, Zixandra said. Your species has chemical-enhanced strength available on demand? Only in emergencies, Dr. Carter said, but it saved human lives for thousands of years. Let me tell you about human healing, Dr. Grant continued. Humans regularly damage themselves and recover completely. She showed pictures on the screen. Humans with cuts, bruises, and broken bones, followed by pictures of the same humans completely healed. This human cut himself deeply. She pointed to a before and after photo. 6 weeks later, there's barely a scar. Humans regenerate damaged tissue? The plant being asked. To a degree, yes. We heal from injuries that would be permanent damage to most species. Alex held up his hands. See these scars? I used to work construction. Cut myself, burned myself, smashed my fingers dozens of times, but they all healed. Construction? Veltar asked. You deliberately engaged in dangerous physical labor? Someone has to build things, Alex said with a shrug. Dr. Carter pulled up the final slide. This brings us to the most important point. Humans didn't just adapt to survive on a death world. We learned to thrive there. The screen showed humans doing extreme sports, working in dangerous jobs, exploring dangerous places, rock climbing, deep-sea diving, volcano research, storm chasing, Dr. Carter listed. Humans actively seek out danger. Why? Zixandra asked. Why would a species voluntarily expose itself to additional threats? Jake stood up from the audience. Because it's fun, because we can, because someone needs to do it. Someone needs to study active volcanoes, the cloud student asked. How else would we learn about them? Jake replied. How else would we know when they might threaten people? Ryan Brooks, the other human student, raised his hand. Should I tell them about extreme sports, like base jumping and free climbing? Dr. Carter shook her head quickly. Let's save that for another day. As the lecture ended, the alien students sat in stunned silence. Finally, Veltar spoke. If this is what your bodies can do, what did your minds develop to accomplish? Dr. Carter and the other humans exchanged looks. Tomorrow's lecture about human history was going to be very difficult to explain. The lecture hall was quieter today. Some alien students had stopped coming after learning about human biology. Others had requested permission to observe from remote locations. Jake understood why. Yesterday's demonstrations had been pretty intense. Dr. Carter stood at the front with Professor Dan Rogers, a human history teacher, and Chris Mitchell, a former military officer who now studied peacekeeping. Nicole Taylor, a human anthropologist, sat nearby with a stack of books. Today we discuss human mental development, Dr. Carter began. But I must warn you, this will be difficult to hear. Professor Rogers stepped forward. He was an older man, with gray hair and kind eyes, but his voice was serious. Human history is not like the history of other species. Earth forced us to develop in ways that may seem shocking to you. The screen behind him showed a map of Earth with different colored regions. Humans spread across our entire planet, even the most dangerous areas, deserts, frozen lands, mountains, jungles. We adapted to every environment. But Earth's hostility did something else to us. Rogers continued. It made us competitive. Humans had to fight for resources, territory, and survival. Zixandra's crystal, body dimmed. You mean humans fought each other, while also fighting your planet's dangers? Yes. For most of our history, different human groups competed for the same resources. This led to conflict. The screen showed ancient weapons, spears, swords, bows. Even these simple tools made the alien students uncomfortable. Humans developed weapons to hunt dangerous animals, Rogers explained, but we also used them against each other. Why would you fight your own species? Asked Veltar. Surely cooperation would be more logical. Chris Mitchell stood up. Humans did cooperate, but in smaller groups. We formed tribes, clans, and nations, but different groups often fought over land, water, and food. This is where human strategy developed, Rogers said. Humans became very good at planning, organizing, and outthinking their enemies. He showed a diagram of an ancient battle formation. These tactics required hundreds of humans to work together perfectly. Split-second timing, complex communication, absolute trust in your fellow soldiers, Nicole Taylor spoke up. But humans also developed diplomacy. We learned to negotiate, make treaties, and solve problems without fighting. However, Rogers said carefully, human warfare became very advanced very quickly. The screen showed progression through history, castles, cannons, ships, and then things that made the alien students very uncomfortable. Humans developed the ability to attack from great distances, Rogers explained. First with arrows, then with gunpowder weapons, then with guided projectiles. How far can humans attack from? Asked the choral student. Chris Mitchell looked uncomfortable. Modern human weapons can strike targets on the other side of the planet. The lecture hall went completely silent. The other side of the planet? Zixandra whispered. You developed weapons with planetary range. Defense systems, Mitchell said. Quickly. Most human weapons technology was developed for protection. Protection from what? Veltar buzzed. What could threaten humans that required planetary-scale weapons? Rogers and Mitchell exchanged looks. Other humans, Rogers said quietly. The alien students began making distressed sounds. Several were taking notes frantically, probably reporting to their governments. But here's what's important, Nicole Taylor said, standing up. Humans also developed the strongest cooperation instincts in the galaxy. She clicked to a new slide showing humans working together, building cities, sharing food. Teaching children. The same conditions that made humans competitive also made us incredibly loyal to our groups. Humans will sacrifice everything to protect their families, their friends, their communities. Sacrifice? Asked the plant being. What do you mean? Humans will give up their own safety, their own lives to save others, Taylor explained. Chris, Mitchell nodded. In human military history, soldiers regularly died to protect their comrades. Parents died to save their children. Humans died to protect complete strangers. This makes no evolutionary sense, Veltar said. Why would a species develop self-destructive protective instincts? Because groups that protected each other survived better than groups that didn't, Taylor explained. Humans learned that the survival of the group was more important than individual survival. Jake stood up from the audience. My grandfather fought in a war 70 years ago. He saved 12 people from a burning building. Nearly died doing it. Why would he risk his life for others? Zixandra asked. Because it was the right thing to do, Jake said simply. Professor Rogers returned to the front. This brings us to the most difficult part of human history. The screen showed a picture of Earth from space, blue and beautiful. 200 years ago, humans developed weapons that could destroy our entire planet. The alien students erupted in panic. Several began making emergency calls to their homeworlds. Nuclear weapons, Rogers said when the noise died down. Humans created the ability to end all life on Earth. And you used these weapons? The Cloud student was raining heavily now, twice during a large war. The destruction was so terrible that humans realized we had gone too far. So you destroyed the weapons? Veltar asked hopefully. No, Mitchell said. We kept them. But we made agreements never to use them. You still have planet-destroying weapons? Zixandra's crystal body was ringing like a fire alarm. Many nations do, yes. But we've had them for 200 years without ending the world. How is that possible? Asked the metal tree student. How does a species develop ultimate weapons and not use them? Nicole Taylor smiled sadly. Because humans learned something important. We learned that we're all on the same small planet. We learned that destroying others means destroying ourselves. The same instinct that made humans protect their tribes expanded, Rogers explained. Now many humans consider all of humanity their tribe. Some even consider all life on Earth their tribe. But you still have the weapons, Veltar pointed out. Yes, but now we use them as protection against external threats, Mitchell said. If something from space threatened Earth, every human nation would work together. External threats? The Coral student's arms were waving. You mean you would use planet-destroying weapons against other worlds? Only if they threatened Earth. First, Mitchell said firmly. Humans are very protective of their home and their people. Dr. Carter stepped forward. This is the key to understanding humans. The same world that made us dangerous also made us protective. We're not conquerors, we're guardians. Guardians? Zixandra asked. Humans in space don't spread out to take over other worlds, Carter explained. We spread out to protect things. We explore to learn. We build to create safe places. We fight only when something threatens what we protect. Nicole Taylor showed the final slide. It was a picture of humans working alongside aliens on a space station. Today, humans use our skills to help other species. We build defenses for peaceful worlds. We explore dangerous places so others don't have to. We stand guard so others can live safely. The same traits that made humans survive a death world, Rogers concluded, now make us the galaxy's protectors. The lecture hall was quiet for a long time. Finally, Veltar spoke. So humans are dangerous because your world made you dangerous, but you're also protective because your world taught you to value life. Exactly, Dr. Carter said. Earth didn't create monsters. It created guardians. As the alien students filed out, Jake heard them talking quietly about the impossible species that had learned to turn their deadliest traits into their greatest strengths. Tomorrow's final lecture would show them what that really meant. The final lecture was scheduled for Friday evening. Jake walked into the lecture hall and found it packed beyond capacity. Students were hanging from the ceiling, floating in corners, and even watching through the windows from outside. Word about the human lectures had spread to every corner of the station. Dr. Carter stood at the front with Captain Luke Anderson, a human peacekeeping officer, and Dr. Emma Wilson, who worked in terraforming. Jake could see the tension in the room. After 4 days of learning about human capabilities, the alien students seemed both fascinated and nervous. Today we discuss what all of this means, Dr. Carter began. You've learned about Earth's hostile environment, human biology, and our history. Now you'll understand why humans are in space. Captain Anderson stepped forward. He was tall and calm, wearing the blue uniform of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. Humans didn't come to space to conquer. We came to protect. The screen behind him showed human ships patrolling peaceful star systems. These are human peacekeeping vessels. They guard trade routes, respond to emergencies, and protect worlds that can't defend themselves. But why? Asked Zixandra. Why would humans risk themselves for other species? Because it's what we do, Anderson said simply. Earth taught us that survival depends on protecting each other. We've extended that protection to the galaxy. Dr. Emma Wilson smiled. Humans also came to space to build. We terraform worlds, making them safe for species that couldn't survive there otherwise. She showed before and after pictures of planets, barren rocks transformed into garden worlds with breathable atmospheres and stable climates. We take worlds that are too dangerous for most species and make them livable, Wilson explained. It's what humans are good at. We turn hostile environments into safe homes. Veltar's buzzing was thoughtful. So humans use their Deathworld adaptations to help other species? Exactly. What makes us dangerous also makes us useful. Anderson said. Jake was about to add something when alarms started blaring throughout the station. Red emergency lights began flashing. The intercom crackled to life. All students and staff report to emergency stations immediately. Solar flare detected. Category 5 solar storm incoming. Estimated arrival in 47 minutes. The lecture hall erupted in panic. Alien students were screaming, crying, and frantically calling their homeworlds. Most species had never experienced a solar storm. To them, it was a death sentence. Jake looked around and realized something important. While all the alien students were panicking, the humans were moving with calm purpose. Dr. Carter was already on her communication device, talking quickly to someone. Captain Anderson was checking his equipment. Dr. Wilson was pulling up station schematics on her tablet. Everyone please remain calm, Dr. Carter announced, but her voice was drowned out by the terrified aliens. Then Captain Anderson did something that shocked everyone. He put 2 fingers in his mouth and whistled. The sound was sharp and loud, cutting through all the noise. Every alien in the room went silent and stared at him. Thank you, Anderson said calmly. Now listen carefully. A solar storm is dangerous, but it's not the end of the world. Humans have been dealing with these for centuries. Dealing with them? Zixandra's crystal body was flashing frantically. How can anyone deal with solar radiation storms? The same way we deal with everything else, Jake said, standing up. We work together and we don't panic. Dr. Wilson was already moving toward the door. The station's main shields need manual adjustment for solar storms. The automated systems aren't enough. Manual adjustment? The choral students' arms were waving frantically. That means going outside the protected areas. Someone has to do it, Wilson said. The shields won't hold without human supervision. Captain Anderson was organizing the humans in the room. Jake, Ryan, Kevin, Alex, Chris, you're with me. We need to get to the shield generators. Wait, Veltar buzzed. You're volunteering to expose yourselves to radiation. Someone has to, Anderson said. The station has 30,000 people on it. We're not going to let you all die because of a solar storm. Dr. Carter was coordinating evacuation procedures. All non-essential personnel need to get to the core sections. The humans will handle the emergency systems. Why humans? Asked the plant being. Why not trained station personnel? Because station personnel aren't adapted for radiation exposure like humans are, Carter explained. And because humans are the only ones calm enough to think clearly right now. Jake watched the transformation happening around him. While alien students continued to panic, humans throughout the station were taking charge. They were organizing evacuations. manning emergency stations and preparing to risk their lives for people they barely knew. "This is what I was trying to explain," Dr. Carter said to the alien students. "This is why humans are in space." The intercom crackled again. 35 minutes to solar storm impact. All civilians to emergency shelters immediately. Captain Anderson and his team of humans headed for the door. Jake started to follow, then stopped when he heard Zixandra call his name. "Jake," she said, her crystal body ringing softly. "You don't have to do this. You could hide in the shelters with us," Jake smiled. "My grandfather didn't have to run into that burning building either, but someone needed to do it." "But you might die," Veltar said. "Maybe. But if we don't try, a lot more people definitely will die." As Jake followed the other humans out of the lecture hall, he heard Dr. Carter address the remaining alien students. "This is why Earth is called a death world," she said. "Not because it tries to kill everything on it, but because it creates people who will face death to protect life." The next 6 hours were the longest of Jake's life. He and the other humans worked in teams, adjusting shield generators, rerouting power systems, and making sure the station's life support could handle the radiation storm. The solar storm hit like a wall of fire. Radiation levels spiked to lethal amounts. The station shook as electromagnetic pulses hammered the shields, but the shields held, because humans were there to adjust them manually when the automated systems failed. When it was over, Jake found himself back in the lecture hall. The alien students had gathered to thank the humans who had saved their lives. "I understand now," Zixandra said, her crystal body glowing warmly. "Earth didn't create monsters. It created heroes." "Not heroes," Jake said tiredly. "Just people who learned that protecting others is more important than protecting yourself." Veltar approached slowly. "When I return to my homeworld, they will ask me about humans. What should I tell them?" Dr. Carter smiled. "Tell them that humans are exactly what a death world should create. We're survivors who learned that survival means nothing if you survive alone." Captain Anderson, tired but smiling, added, "Tell them that humans are dangerous. But we're only dangerous to things that threaten the people we protect. And tell them," Jake said, "that if they ever need help, humans will be there. Because that's what we do." As the alien students filed out of the lecture hall, Jake heard them talking excitedly about the humans who had risked everything to save them. He knew that word would spread throughout the galaxy about the species from the death world who had learned to turn their greatest dangers into their greatest strengths. Dr. Carter put her hand on Jake's shoulder. "You know, Jake, I think they finally understand why we're called a death world species." Jake nodded. "Because we're the ones who aren't afraid to face death if it means protecting life." And in that moment, Jake understood something about himself and his species that he had never realized before. Earth hadn't made humans tough just to survive. It had made them tough so they could help others survive too.